Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Snaps 101 series, where today we're going to talk about the Authentication Snap. And in particular, because the Authentication Snap does a lot of things, we're going to focus on the security that is built in the minute you snap in the Authentication Snap with every custom backend you build on Snapser. Now, to understand the three security types that come with your custom backend, uh, you can obviously go to the documentation. And in this, we're actually going to use the API Explorer tool to understand what it means as far as these three authentication types are concerned. So at a high level, there are three authentication types that are supported within Snapser per backend that you create within the platform. One is user authentication, API key authentication, and then internal authentication. Let's look at them one by one. So as this diagram shows you, user authentication is meant to be used by devices that are out there in the world. Think games running on our devices or apps running on our devices. They want to access your custom backend. This is the technique that you will use, or authentication type that is expected to be used to access your backend. The next is API key auth. Think of it as you're trying to access your backend via a secure server or a server you own. So as this diagram shows, it can include an external server running anywhere on-prem or in your own cloud instance, or even in the Snapser deployed global fleet where you have your game server code running. And lastly, the superpower of Snapser is the customization, or the ability for you to bring in your own custom code. We call it BioSnap. And now, using internal authentication, you can actually access APIs within your snapend from your custom code, and that essentially stands for internal authentication. Now, to understand these three things further, let's look at the setup that I have here. As you can see, I have a backend with the auth snap, one BioSnap, which is my custom code, and then storage. Further, what we have right here is I've actually gone in and enabled the anonymous connector. It's going to help us use the API Explorer tool and look at these different authentication types. Next, I've also created an API key, which is what you will need, and you will actually plug in into your trusted server code to access your custom backend. And lastly, what we are trying to do as part of this demo is store data for a user against a storage blob called as user data. So now let's look at the API Explorer tool. Further, another setup that I've already done just to save time is I've gone through the anonymous login API, and I've actually created two users, which you can see right here under the helper. Why? So that I can now just copy their ID and token and start showing you how these three security or auth types operate. So to understand that, let's click on the storage snap right here. And the API Explorer actually smartly shows you all the three techniques, or all the three, categories of the authentication types right here. So let's look at the user auth first. What we're trying to do here is, for a particular user, I want to store their user data in the cloud. So I'm going to hit this replace blob API. And as you can see, for user auth type, it's expected that you pass the user's JWT token. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to go to the helper. Let's take user A's token. Let's paste that. Let's also take their identifier and paste that here. The access type is protected, and the blob key is user data. What I want to now do is, I'm not going to go into optimistic concurrency control right now. I just want to store user A's data in the cloud. If I do this, there it is. User's data using user auth security mechanism has been stored in the cloud. Just to show you how you get authentication for free or security for free, in case there's a bad actor trying to pass in a random token right here, your backend is going to reject it, saying it does not find a session, and it's going to protect the user's data on your behalf. Next, let's look at the API key auth type. When you click on the API key auth type, it again shows you all the APIs that are available to that auth type. I'm going to now pick replace blob. It opens it up in a new tab. And now check this out. The difference here is, instead of now passing the token for the user, you now have to pass in an API key. And the reason for that is because the call is now coming from a trusted server code. And you do not need to tell Snapser a particular user is making this call. Rather, a server is making the call. And so for this, what I've done is I have actually created the API key, which you can see right here. So I'm going to pass in that API key. And now you'll see how we are able to save data on behalf of this user ID using user auth. There it is. And if I pass in new user data, there it is. I should be able to now save it in the cloud. Again, similar to what I showed you in the other demo, let's say that I pass in an incorrect API key. Your custom backend is equipped to confirm that it's validating the API key and protecting your user's data. And finally, internal authentication. As a reminder, this is the type of authentication you'll use from your custom biosnap code to access other snaps in your backend. And again, you can click on the replace blob API and notice now you do not need to pass an API key. You do not need to pass any kind of a user token. It's an internal call. It's a trusted call. And you can use a gateway internal header and store the data on behalf of the user. And the blob key was user data. I'm going to now pass in internally saved data. If I do this, there it is. You now have saved the user data internally from your trusted internal custom code. So hopefully this gives you a good high-level picture of how security and authentication works within your custom backend on Snapster. Thank you.